So the analogy I like to use is imagine if you had an employee who did not know how to use Google or did not have a cell phone,
Mhm.
right? They will struggle through their daily life.
Yes.
That they will struggle through the day of their job, even if their job has absolutely nothing to do with those two things. It's simply about the fact that these tools are very powerful, and the more that your employees know about how to leverage them, the more productive they will simply be in their daily lives, which means that they will be able to do more for your business.
To today's episode of the Business Growth Spotlight. I am being joined today by an incredible guest. I've been chatting with her behind the scenes, and I'm really excited to dive into our topic today because we're talking about technology and AI. But before we chat with Dr. Nisha Talagala, we're going to chat with you about our sponsor, HLH Growth Solutions, partners with businesses to help them scale their companies strategically. Their proven methods focus on increasing visibility, attracting high-value clients, and driving consistent revenue growth, all without adding more to your plate. If you're ready to position your business as a market leader, grab their free Spotlight to Scale Blueprint, a step-by-step guide to expanding your influence, growing your audience, and achieving sustainable growth. Download it at spotlighttoscale.com/blueprint. So let's chat today with Nisha Talagala. Welcome, Nisha, to the Business Growth Spotlight. I'm excited to talk with you today.
Thanks very much. Happy to be here.
So before we dive into Nisha, I'm just going to give a brief introduction about you, and then we will get started. So Nisha is the CEO and founder of AIClub and AIClubPro, bringing AI literacy to K-12 students and individuals worldwide. She has significant experience in introducing technologies like artificial intelligence to new learners, from students to professionals. Nisha holds 75 patents in distributed systems and software, over 25 refereed research publications, is a frequent speaker at industry and academic events, and is a contributing writer to Forbes and other publications. So, Nisha, my first question for you today is AIClub is focused on AI education. How do you see AI education being leveraged for business?
Absolutely. Yeah, so we maintain two organizations, AI Club and AI Club Pro. AI Club is focused on younger students, so pre-collegiate, and AI Club Pro is focused on professionals. So we started this initiative because it really is, and I think people are seeing it now more so than they did before when we started, but it is now critical for everyone to learn AI.
Mm-hmm.
Because AI is moving so rapidly and it is, becoming so much a part of our daily lives. This is true more for businesses perhaps than for anything else. So with businesses, it's very important for business growth to really make sure that your employees are aware of and are leveraging, and appropriately leveraging any resources that are available to them. So the analogy I like to use is imagine if you had an employee who did not know how to use Google or did not have a cell phone,
Mm-hmm.
right? Would you consider this person to have, they will struggle through their daily life,
Yes.
that they will struggle through the day of their job, even if their job has absolutely nothing to do with those two things. A person sitting right next to them who has those two tools will simply be easier at responding to email, arranging meetings, getting things done. So sometimes it's not really about being a scientist or being an engineer. It's simply about the fact that these tools are very powerful, and the more that your employees know about how to leverage them, the more productive they will simply be in their daily lives, which means that they will be able to do more for your business. So I think that is one of the critical things. Of course, there's ways in which AI can benefit businesses in very specific ways, like how it benefits, banks, healthcare companies, marketing agencies. But at a very basic level, your employees will simply just be able to get more done.
Yeah, it's been incredible to see the explosion of AI in just the last year to 2 years specifically. I know in the before that, especially in the online space, we really didn't see it or didn't hear about it. And I know it's been going on in the background long before it's been on the forefront, right? All technology happens more in the background than before we ever see it. And you've been involved in this for a very long time. So my next question for you is: many businesses hesitate to adopt AI due to perceived complexity or lack of resources. What advice would you give leaders on how to overcome those barriers?
Yeah, absolutely. And the first thing I think is to not kind of diminish those concerns,
Mm.
because AI adoption is hard. And part of the reason why it's hard is because it is a complex field and it has elements of ethics, elements of security concern. There are emerging laws. One of the problems with AI is that the laws are catching up to the technology, which means that by definition, the laws are scattershot. So if you're a business, particularly an international business, then there may be laws in your local state. There may be laws in the European Union that you may not have a single employee in the European Union, but you sell products there. So suddenly the laws in the European Union apply to you. So it becomes very difficult because everybody's struggling to figure out what the right thing is. And you as a business have to figure out what everybody's thinking relative to your product, only relative to your product, but you still have to know. So one of the challenges, and I think what I have realized from both doing it myself as well as working with large companies that have done it. So like companies like Google, Facebook, and others have been doing AI for a long time. And one of the things that I did in my previous company is we organized a conference on operational AI. How do you actually make this stuff work? And one of the key lessons is start small and iterate. Just because the technology looks like it can do everything doesn't mean you need to do everything. Start somewhere, learn, but as quickly as possible, iterate. Because iteration is what gets you to success. The other thing to remember is that the AI you use today is nothing like the one you're going to see 2 years from now. So you're not trying to learn it and be perfect. You're trying to get into a point where a new thing comes in, you can learn it quickly. That's really the only thing you're trying to do. You're trying to surf the wave. I call it surfing the wave, right?
Yeah.
The wave is there. You'd rather be on top of it than underneath it. So you just need to learn to surf the wave, and then you can go wherever you're willing to let it take you. So that I think is the key: is start small, start with something you feel like you can wrap your brain around, but very quickly figure out how it worked for you, and then try another thing.
I like that you said start small because action brings clarity, right? And it can be very overwhelming in this AI space, especially if it's new, and it is new to many businesses. So start small, learn. You don't have to be perfect at it because again, it's going to shift and change and evolve. And this is a fast-paced space in the business world. Don't try to be perfect about it or feel pressure and overwhelmed that you have to learn it all. Just take baby steps, like Nisha said. Start small and iterate and learn it, take action because action brings clarity, and you'll be amazed at how fast you learn. And you might even have some fun in the process, right? AI can be fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so enjoy it. As the AI Club continues to grow and expand, what are some of the biggest challenges that you face when it comes to scaling, whether that's in terms of client acquisition, visibility, or operational capacity?
So I think that this is my second startup. And so I can tell you kind of a little bit, and I work in many large companies as well. I think we go from challenge to challenge. At any point in time, there's a challenge. And then when you overcome it, another challenge, which was probably always there, simply bubbles to the surface. So as a company, as a startup company, we started with product, because you have to have product. And so there was a lot of time when our challenges were about building the product. Then it came to customer acquisition, product market fit, is the product working? Is it what, people really want? Then we had scale challenges. And so now we are in a cycle where we are iterating on different levels of scale challenge. As in the first challenge of scale, we were able to overcome by, improving operational capacity. Now we have the next level of scale and streamlining. The place where I think AI fits into all this to, kind of help is that, I consider us an AI native organization. But I think the more important thing is not whether we think we are an AI native organization, but why you might want to become one. What do I mean by AI native? It simply means that you are able to operationalize, scale, customer acquire, anything you need to do better because you have a visibility of the tools that are available for you. And you have ingrained in your organization the practices of learning how to use those tools and using them. And by using them, I don't mean just using them. I mean using them ethically without breaking any laws, without getting your company into trouble, without divulging your intellectual property. So it's not just about, oh, there's a new tool, let me go use it. It's about, oh, there's a new tool. Is this okay? How can this help me? How can this hurt me? Is it a good decision to use it? So we find that a lot of our problems became easier to solve because we have applied AI to solve them. So we're not just in the business of educating AI. So as a simple example, since we educate, right? We maintain a significant quality control over our product, because it involves teachers interacting with students. We have a lot of AI analytics in the background that assess that. and are able to tell us as we scale if our quality is, seeing any kind of glitch. And we see it very quickly. So that's a technology we built in the background. So I think the way I would just kind of think about it is, scaling of a company or the challenges of a company iterate from product to customers to scale to maybe product again.
Yeah.
Customer, and it just keeps kind of churning. And every time you get, a new challenge bubbles to the top of my list, I hit that, then the next one will bubble. But try to see how you can use AI to make those iter, because I can tell you that we would be way, way less efficient than we are if we did not have those tools.
Very true. And when growth happens, challenges are going to show up, right? It's the growing pains of becoming successful and creating a lucrative business. You mentioned a couple times laws, and also, I've heard people in business saying, well, I have intellectual property that if I use AI, I'm afraid that other people will find my method or the way we're doing things. What is your advice to companies that have that fear of using AI, that it might, take what is specifically theirs or their idea? Even for students, these students are creative, they have ideas, and same thing with people moving into opening business, whether they're small or medium. Like, what advice would you say for people that have that fear when it comes to using AI?
I think don't diminish the fear. It's really important to kind of assess it. So I'll give you a few examples, right? Which is, there was a case of a company that I won't name, where an engineer of the company was looking to fix their software, decided to dump the lines of their software into ChatGPT, asked it what was wrong. Now, technically, ChatGPT owns that intellectual property, because if you read the fine print, anything you tell it, it belongs to it. This is the kind of thing we should obviously should not be doing. Right? Now, what could you have done? Maybe you could have, asked some high-level questions about the kind of problem you're seeing, right? What is a likely situation? You could have found another tool perhaps that did not have the same, intellectual property and brought it in-house. There are many, many tools. So part of it is understanding the sensitivity of the information that you're dealing with, particularly if that information belongs to a customer or involves privacy. That is the highest sensitivity, in my view. That's the information you should never be giving to an AI outside your company for any reason. And if you give it to an AI inside your company, you really need to make sure that the manufacturer has not decided to scrape it from you. Stuff like that. If it's a question about a product that you built, hard to say. Maybe, maybe not. Just be careful. If it's a generic question about knowledge, probably it's okay. Things like that. But this is a decision you have to make for yourself. And this is why upskilling the employees is so important, because the easy answer is to tell them not to do anything. That comes with no productivity whatsoever. The other answer is to say, do everything. That comes with legal trouble and all sorts of other trouble. So you have to educate them to find that middle ground, and you can't always be there to answer the question for them, which means that you have to teach them how to answer it for themselves.
Yeah.
Hence education.
Okay, thank you for that. That clears up a lot. So just be wise in what you're inputting into your AI, or create something in-house and make sure you have those things in place to protect yourself. So as a leader in the tech industry, Nisha, what lessons have you learned about scaling a company and maintaining innovation in a rapidly evolving field? As you said, in 2 years, things are going to change. So this is a rapidly evolving field. So what lessons have you learned?
So, I think for me, I think the key lesson is that communication is everything. And even if you think that you communicated, you still have to communicate again. Because it's not that people are not listening. It's not that people don't understand. They have different perspectives. So when I say something, what people hear is not the same as what I thought I said.
Yeah.
It's simply because they're coming into it with their own perspective. Therefore, they hear a statement and they interpret something entirely different. And the only way you can resolve that issue is by continuously communicating. Communicate, and the more geographically distant your teams are, which these days is a reality, the more of that. So what does that mean? It means communicate verbally, communicate in documents, communicate on, chat. Like, we heavily leverage Slack in our company. Now, so we try to keep those communications as frequent, as small, and as interactive as possible, so that there are many touch points where if there is a misunderstanding, it surfaces up hopefully long before an entire product gets built. So that, I think, is the single most important thing, and communication across business organizations. So one thing that we have done is we've tried very hard to give the customer perspective to as many people in the company as possible.
Okay.
we encourage everyone in our company is required to use our product. They're required to accomplish certain things with our product. And we do that simply so that they can see it from the eyes of the customer. And so those are the kinds of things that I think have helped keep us cohesive.
That's a good point. You need to know you need to know your product better than the people receiving the product, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And who's better to give you insight into your product than your own team who's working with you day to day? Yeah. So I was listening to an interview you did, and you said this, and I'm going to quote you, and I would love to know more about this. So AI is going to transform education from what you know to who you are. And I was fascinated by when you shared that. So what does that mean?
So I can maybe kind of give you a bit of a history. Now, AI is very different from everything that's come in the past. So with that caveat, with Google, for example, technically, with a search engine, technically, I don't need to remember everything. Within a minute, if I know how to use the search engine, I can find anything I want. So the value of the knowledge that is living in my brain went down dramatically, right? There was a time when my knowledge was based on whatever I could remember. Because otherwise I would have to go to a library. There was a thing called the Dewey Decimal System. I would have to find a book. I would have to read it, right? That's a nightmare. So the people who remember
It was a nightmare.
brain, yeah, and I have done it, so I can tell you. So the point is that AI is in the sense that what Google could not do is you could not ask Google to do something for you. Right? You could ask it information, and then you had to figure out what to do. Now, AI, you can say, I want to do this. Do it for me. And then hopefully you have enough knowledge to figure out if you did it right, which by the way, you should always check because AIs can imagine things faster than you can imagine. So now the question is okay, previously what I remembered in my head mattered. It didn't matter anymore. Now, what I can do doesn't matter as much because I can ask the AI to do it. So now what am I bringing in? I'm the one who still decides what needs to be done. So that's what I mean by who you are, right? And so what I find is that these days I get things done mostly because my collection of learning and knowledge and experience helps me figure out what needs to be done. And sometimes I do it myself. Sometimes I ask an AI to do it. Sometimes I ask another person to do it. So you see how that, the person you are is more important than whatever you have chosen to retain in your memory. So now what does that mean? Like I have a young daughter. So when I look at her studying, I'm far more interested in whether she understood what she was learning than whether she remembers it. Can you understand it? Can you apply it? Can you imagine something outside of your textbooks that could be done with the thing you just learned? Now you're ready to surf the wave, right?
Right.
If all you can do is regurgitate what you have learned, the tools are just, I'm sorry, faster than you. They know more than you. They've read the entire internet.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by who you are.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I have children too, and their world is much different than our world was growing up and going through school. And it's important that we back in our day, we used to memorize and we're always learning. But again, now there's systems out there that are learning faster than us. So they can't apply it like us humans can. So it's important that we dig deeper with that meaning and what we're learning, and can we apply it and how can we use it to, make an impact.
Now, the positive thing that I will say, and I've seen this in both training adults and training young people, is when you give the adult, for example, the tool, right? If you give the adult the tool, show them how the tool works, they naturally gravitate towards what they can do on top of it. So it's not about giving them in a vacuum and saying, hey, all this stuff that you've learned is no longer useful, learn this new thing. It's more about, oh, here's a tool, right? Now your brain can be freed up to do other things. What will your brain do? So sometimes it's not as theoretical. It's simply about putting the tools in front of a person and letting them discover what they're capable of.
Thank you for explaining that to me. I was researching you and listening some things that you talked on. And when you shared that, I was like, wow, that's so good. So what emerging trends in AI or technology should businesses be paying attention to in the next 2 to 3 years to stay competitive, especially since it's always evolving?
So I think, what you will find is that AIs will become more and more powerful in ways that you may not think were possible. I mean, these days, it's an extremely dangerous thing to say AI will never be able to do X. It's unlikely to be true. It's a question of when at this point, not a question of if. So one of the things that I like to do is that whenever I hear something that I think, oh, that can't be possible, I ask ChatGPT, turns out it's already been done.
Mm.
Right. So one of the things that you can really, like, when you prepare your businesses, is first of all, learn to ride the wave of the tools. You know, get your employees to a point, upskill them, train them to a point where they can look at the oncoming waves of technologies, pick what they want, make careful choices, critical choices, not like everything is good, and then figure out how to use that to make your business better. Because in the end of the day, your employees understand your business better than, like, a random tool does not know anything about you. Your employees do. You just have to figure out how to connect those dots, and then just frankly assume that the tools will get a lot better. And I would say at this point, if you think there's something the tool cannot do, assume it's not going to be true. Just assume that worst case scenario, the tool will not be able to do that and you'll be exactly where you are and nothing bad is going to come out of that. But if you assume that it can do something, then you're much more positioned for the future. That would be my piece of advice.
Yeah, AI is a great tool for using it for support, but your team, like you were talking about, your employees, they're the ones that are building relationships with your customers. Incorporate the two together. So that brings me to my last question, which you touched on, but let's go deeper. What is the need for professional training for AI in business?
I think the need applies to every element of business and every employee in business. Now, it's not the same need, and this is the key. And one of the reasons why people have such difficulty with AI is because for a long time, it was a field of PhDs saying inscrutable things, right? And writing lots and lots of equations. And by the way, those people still exist and they're still not easy to understand, but that doesn't mean everybody needs to be. So the AI, so I think at this point, every member of every business needs AI training, but the training that your marketing professional needs is not the same as what your developer needs and not the same as what your HR person needs, right? Or what your, sales rep needs. But they all need it. They just need to understand enough of what it is, enough of what's out there that they can make critical purchase choices about their own use and figure out how to map it to whatever brings you revenue. They have to understand enough to map it to the revenue or the return on investment in their job. But I think at this point, it's everybody.
Yeah, it's normal and it's important in business, no matter what business you're in, to keep training your employees, training your team, having that consistent, whether it's HR training or education training. AI is now something that's not going away. It's only going to get bigger and much more. You're going to need it more and more, or going to be using it more and more. So it's really important that you have that training for your employees, for your management team, for everybody involved, and how to best utilize it and bring it into your business to simplify things, right? Nisha shared with you, it can help you really simplify a lot in your business and also support your employees in the process. And so if you have any questions, for people that have questions, Nisha, how do we connect with you? How do we reach out to you? How do we find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. That would be probably the easiest way. Feel free to connect with me and, drop me a note. I believe the information we sent you has the URLs for both our professional training as well as our student programs. You can feel free to check that out. There's places there to contact as well. There are places to set up consultations and so forth. So I think both of those would be great.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Nisha, for being here. For those of you listening, reach out to Nisha, find out how she can help you in your business, how her company can help you in your business. AI Club for professional training, because like she shared, it's really important that you are keeping up with what's happening, and it's constantly evolving, and you don't have to do this alone, right? You can take baby steps, but you don't need to do this alone. You can bring in experts and specialists who can support you and your employees in the AI technology space. So reach out to Nisha. Nisha, thank you so much for being here with me today. I've learned a lot. I'm new to AI. I'm playing with it. So this has been a really eye-opening conversation. So thank you so much for your expertise today.
It was great.
And thank you for joining us for the Business Growth Spotlight. Have an amazing rest of your day, and we will see you on the next episode.